The first thing Elias Porter noticed about the containment wing wasn't the reinforced walls or the layered force fields. It was the smell. Sterile metal and recycled air couldn't fully mask it. Hunger had a scent of its own. Dry, sharp, and desperate. Elias paused outside cell 47, datapad in hand, and frowned at the readout scrolling past his eyes. Species: unknown. Designation: hostile fauna, provisional. Feeding status: suspended, security review. Suspended. That was bureaucratic language for starved. Elias exhaled slowly. He was a logistics officer, not a xenobiologist, not security. His job was to keep supplies moving on Cass's station, a deep space research and detention hub that specialized in dangerous anomalies. He wasn't supposed to question classifications. But something about the designation bothered him. Monster, the guards had called it. Beast. Elias had learned long ago that words like that were usually used when someone didn't want to look too closely. She crouched in the corner of the cell, wrapped in her own long limbs, back pressed to the curved wall. The force field hummed softly between them, casting pale light over her form. She was tall, even-seated, long-boned, sinewy, covered in dark, scaled skin that shimmered faintly with iridescent patterns. Her eyes snapped open the moment Elias approached. Too alert for an animal. Too aware. She bared her teeth in a silent warning, claws scraping against the floor as she shifted. Elias didn't move. He slowly lowered himself to a kneel, hands visible, posture relaxed. "Hey," he said quietly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The translator implant behind his ear chirped, no response detected. Either she didn't speak known trade languages, or the station had never bothered to try. He glanced at the feeding log again. 5 days without rations. For a sentient species, or even a high-metabolism predator, that was cruelty. Security review, Elias muttered. Yeah, sure. He reached into his supply satchel and pulled out a sealed nutrient pack. Standard human emergency ration, dense, high energy, and non-toxic to most known biologies. He slid it carefully toward the edge of the force field and set it down. Her eyes locked onto it instantly. Hunger overrode fear. She crept forward inch by inch, movements cautious but deliberate. When she reached the field, she hesitated, then extended a clawed finger. The field repelled her gently, a soft shimmer rather than a shock. Elias tapped a control on his datapad, temporarily lowering the field's interaction threshold at floor level, a maintenance function meant for sanitation. The pack slid through. She stared at it for a long moment, then snatched it and retreated, tearing it open with practiced efficiency. She ate fast, shoulders hunched, eyes never leaving Elias. When she finished, she looked smaller, not physically, but emotionally. Less like a threat. More like someone who had been afraid the food would vanish if she blinked. Elias swallowed hard. "They treated you like a beast," he murmured. "Didn't they?" The next day, he brought water. The day after that, another ration. He logged each delivery as a containment stability test, carefully worded to avoid triggering alerts. No one questioned it. Cass's station was full of people who preferred not to know more than their job required. With each visit, she grew calmer. She stopped baring her teeth. She sat closer to the field. Once, she even mimicked the way Elias sat, legs crossed, head tilted in curiosity. "See," Elias said softly. "You're not a monster. You're just hungry and scared." On the 7th day, she spoke. It wasn't in any language Elias recognized, but the translator chirped, strained, and then produced a rough approximation. "Why, you Elias froze. You speak, he said slowly, carefully. You're sentient. Her head tilted. You see. It wasn't a question. Yes, Elias said. I see. Her shoulders sagged, tension bleeding out of her posture. They did not. Her name, as close as the translator could manage, was Threxel. Her species came from a high-gravity jungle world beyond mapped space. Apex predators by ecology, but also philosophers, artists, and engineers. When her exploratory vessel malfunctioned near Cars's station, she had been recovered unconscious, restrained, and labeled hostile fauna before she ever woke. Fear had done the rest. They hurt you? Elias asked quietly one day. She nodded. Tests. Hunger. Silence. Her eyes darkened. They waited for me to become what they feared. Elias felt something cold settle in his chest. That was how monsters were made. The incident happened on day 12. A security drill malfunctioned, locking down the containment wing. Power fluctuated. Force fields flickered. Red warning lights flooded the corridor. Elias ran. By the time he reached cell 47, the field was failing, energy stuttering. Threxel stood in the center of the cell, confused, panicked. She could leave. One step and she'd be free. The guards would shoot her. Threxel! Elias shouted. Her head snapped toward him. Danger! I know, he said, breathless. Listen to me. Stay back. Please. She looked at the flickering barrier, then at him. Then, slowly, she stepped away from the opening. The field collapsed with a hiss. Alarms wailed. Security flooded the corridor, weapons raised. Hostile breach, someone yelled. Elias stepped in front of her without thinking, arms spread. Stop, he shouted. She's not attacking. Move, Porter, a guard barked. That thing's a predator. Threxel towered behind Elias, trembling. One swipe and she could tear through them all. She didn't. She stayed, Elias said, voice shaking but firm. She chose not to run. Doesn't that tell you anything? For a long moment, no one moved. Then Threxel did something none of them expected. She lowered herself carefully and bowed her head behind Elias, mimicking a gesture he'd used earlier, a human sign of trust. The guns lowered. Slowly. The investigation took weeks. Records were reviewed. Footage replayed. Classifications questioned. Once the xenolinguistics team was finally allowed to do their job, Threxel's sentience was confirmed beyond doubt. Cars's station issued a formal apology. It sounded hollow. Threxel was reclassified as a protected alien citizen. Plans were made for repatriation, or asylum, if she chose. On the day her cell was permanently deactivated, she stood before Elias, no barrier between them for the first time. You saw a person, she said. When they saw a beast. Elias shrugged, embarrassed. I just fed someone who was hungry. She stepped closer, careful, deliberate. Then she did something that made every nearby official freeze. She leaned down and pressed her forehead gently to his, a gesture her species used for profound gratitude and bonding. Her lips brushed his cheek, light and brief, more symbolic than intimate. A kiss, by human standards. Your kindness, Threxel said softly, will echo in my bloodline. Elias laughed weakly. No pressure, right? She smiled, a slow, careful expression she'd learned from watching him. When Threxel left Cars's station weeks later, escorted not by guards but by diplomats, word spread. About the monster who wasn't one. about the human who fed her when everyone else starved her into silence. Across the station, protocols quietly changed. Feeding suspensions were reviewed. The word beast vanished from classification systems. Because one human had remembered something simple. Monsters weren't born. They were made. And sometimes, all it took to undo that was a meal and the courage to treat someone like a person.